What is up, adventurers, and welcome to a new ShawnSetGO video. Today we're going to be talking about the Game Awards. This has been a point of contention for a lot of people as of recently. In case you don't know, a quick overview of things. Basically, all of the nominees, at least 90% of what's been put out has been done by essentially non-gaming companies. I mean, a lot of people get upset with gaming journalists and the biases that they have, but these are companies that aren't even gaming companies. Now, whatever your thoughts on those, that's not really what I wanted to talk about today, because I want to talk about WoW stuff and how it applies to WoW. And so this came up in the WoW Reddits. But before we get started, of course, if you're watching the video, you're enjoying it, like and subscribe to the page. Thank you so much for all the support. I really do appreciate it. But let's jump into it. Right now, it says, how the heck is WoW not nominated for Best Ongoing Game? Now, listen. Would I expect WoW to be, nominated? No, not necessarily. Do I expect them to win? Of course not. You know, definitely. But look at some of the games here. So the first game that's listed is Destiny 2. Destiny 2. I'm wondering at this point, is Destiny is the category of this game category, is it being a best ongoing game, meaning that it has a pulse, it has is that the standard? Because I mean, WoW has a pulse for sure. So that blows my mind entirely. But the second one is even worse in my opinion, because that's Diablo 4. And I hate the self-hate here, but Diablo 4 has been one of the roughest ongoing games. Now, have there been improvements? Sure, you know, there have been improvements, but the best, I don't know. The first one that makes sense to me is Final Fantasy. I mean, to me that stands the same, it's the same quality. You know, I think the main difference between Final Fantasy and something like WoW is simply that you know, being multi-platform is really important. And Final Fantasy has a far greater reach as a game, especially with titles that are mainly single player games and that people are they recognize more. Stuff like Fortnite, though, I don't want to say that it's not good. I mean, a lot of people still play Fortnite, but is Fortnite making epic strides in the game, or in changes in the game? I don't think so, really. So I mean, to be like, oh yeah, the seasons are different and the cosmetics are different, I don't know about this. And then the last one, which is Helldivers 2, a game that hasn't even been out for a year, is somehow nominated for Best Ongoing Game. So the first comment says, Video Game Award judges probably tried to play WoW, and in typical fashion, other players flame them for not knowing how to tank, heal, or play their class properly. And then the next person says, all these games are multi-platform. So I mean, I guess that makes sense, but to me, I think that still, there's the few of these games. Few of these games just they're not well known for being the best. That's absolutely bananas. Speaking as a Destiny 2 player, the better question is, how the heck is Destiny 2 nominated for Best Ongoing Game? As a Diablo 4 player, I was asking myself the same thing about my game. It's better than it was at launch, but no way is it ready to compete for the title of best in such a broad category. Yeah, that's wild. Notice how most of these games have console platforms. I'm going to assume that this plays a part. Good point. This list doesn't really make sense. I don't really understand how Fortnite makes it if the other esports like League of Legends, Dota, Rocket League, or Valorant aren't. And yeah, I mean, honestly, that it is a wild thing to understand, and I think it's because everyone knows Fortnite, but not everybody knows things like Valorant, I guess, and Dota. Now League, I mean, people have said that League makes more viewership numbers nowadays than something like the Super Bowl, as far as their championship. So that blows my mind. But we're here to talk about WoW. So what are my thoughts on WoW not being nominated? I think that some of the valid points that were made that I've heard is like, you know, things like Plunderstorm, things like Pandaria Remix, you know, maybe the addition of like with War Within and all the things that came with that as well. I honestly, like, I don't want to be like they deserve the win, but I mean, they kind of, in my opinion, qualify at least, because they are making strides. You know, there are things that have been implemented that are, you know, that have had ongoing content for at least the past few months, and they just celebrated their 20-year anniversary. So I mean, it's wild to think that they don't get nominated just because it's not a multi-platform game. Like that to me is kind of like, it's kind of shameful. I mean, like with all the things and all the drama behind the Game Awards, I mean, it's just kind of another thing. People are already upset because, you know, the votes are skewed, and the weights of them are heavily weighted towards companies that aren't even focused on gaming at all. Things like NPR, you know, like that's not a gaming company, and like you could say like, oh, I don't like IGN either, but like definitely, even if someone likes IGN, it's like, what is NPR doing there? Like, that has no business being there. So that I think that's what blows my mind the most. But a lot of people, of course, across the board saying that like that multi-platform is the reason. I would say some people are saying that Final Fantasy 14 isn't necessarily in their like best expansion release right now. I mean, story-wise, I've heard decent things, at least that are comparable to some of the previous ones, but I wouldn't say Final Fantasy 14 is in the best states either, and I don't think WoW is either. Like, I'm not trying to equate these things or conflate these things and then go, hey, by the way, none of these are as good as WoW, because I mean, like, WoW has flaws. WoW has deep and like hard to fix flaws that are tough, but I guess what my issue is, like, when you have something like Helldivers in there, it's like, what's the category for this? Like, what you have extended content, people still play your game, because if the bare minimum is that it's a live service game, I feel like the live service game like range is far wider of a net than they're giving credit for. So that to me seems silly. I think that if you're going to say you have a best ongoing game, you should have a game that has continued from at least the previous year. By the previous fiscal year, you know, so like 2023 till now. At least that would be my standard, because like, if you're going to say ongoing and it's only been out for like 6 months, that to me is just kind of like, that's just kind of silly. So let's look at this one comment here though. So it says that WoW isn't popular, isn't as popular anymore as we think, and WoW is much more niche than you'd also expect. Getting into WoW, why is this so rough to read? Getting into WoW is a nightmare. Okay, gotcha. Look at how many versions we have: Seasons of Discovery, Classic, Progress, Classic Era, Retail. I mean, honestly, yes, you could say that the multiple different versions do sectionalize, like they do kind of like separate the player bases, whereas if they planned out their patches more carefully, people could play Classic and then people could play Retail, kind of leave one, go to another, and kind of like alternate and play both. But really, it just kind of sections people off. But in reality, I don't think it's the worst thing, considering that a lot of people who play Classic have no desire to play Current or Retail. I think there's a lot of people who do separate Retail from Classic, and there's not a lot of crossover, or not as much as crossover as people may think. I think there's a lot of people who play Retail and they have no desire to play old expansions. So I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing. Then there's a time-consuming nature of just getting into one of those four, let alone all of them. I would say, you know, you get into one based on your stage in the game. If you like Classic, but you want something new, then Season of Discovery. If you like Classic and only Classic, Classic. And if you like Retail, Retail. You know, it's just kind of like, you know, take your pick of what you want. Now, there's also another issue. Retail WoW's endgame has a massive barrier to entry and knowledge. Some classes in Spec and WoW are stupidly complex compared to any other game that isn't a fighting game. Play a Prot Warrior, they're super easy. Like 20 buttons openers, how assassinations, whose last time I played had a full 1 minute long opener of a high APM. Yeah, I mean, like some classes, I would say some of the hardest classes that are kind of frustrating are the classes that you just really have to chain your procs, or you really have to kind of like once something procs, you pop things off, you pop your macro, and then you do like a full on like your DPS window, and if you goof it, you're kind of effed. I think that's kind of the way Arcane Mage plays. I believe it's like Arcane Mage has like a full potential, but if you mess up that rotation, you're kind of it's kind of bad. So and this is ignoring Mythic Plus mob abilities, like what is what WTF is an interrupt, and how does one know that it can be interrupted, because WoW doesn't directly teach you that distinction. Yeah, I mean blaming a game for not teaching you things is like, it's like because Dark Souls doesn't give you instructions on everything, then it's a bad game. I don't necessarily think that's the case. We figured it out in 2004. It's a dumb game. It's flawed for sure. I would say the intro experience is a lot more approachable now with Exile's Reach. I've done it a few times now, and I think that's probably like the highest praises you can get on an intro. It's just really good. Now afterwards, you know, it's kind of a weird spiral, but I mean, take it for what you will. The intro experience isn't that bad. Or silences AoE or ignoring abilities. Yeah, I mean, kind of getting into the weeds of like the flaws of the inner workings of the game, but we're just talking about best ongoing game. I think that what best ongoing game is, it's not necessarily like how hard is it to play or digestible or easy to get into. Is this game providing meaningful content that's different from the previous content? And I think this is what this is. I mean, you could say that Helldivers has like a story expansion, but you are essentially doing the same thing. Wow, yes, you're doing some of the same like end game stuff, but your story changes, your quests change, your world changes. I mean, maybe the class or race you're playing changes, especially if you're playing some of the new stuff. So I think when you talk about best ongoing game, I would say how much of is it like a diversion from what initially you were doing. Like, for example, if you were to include like something like Elden Ring, which by the way, as a DLC, got included as game of the year. If you're going to include Elden Ring as best ongoing game, then I think that beats out a lot of these, one. And two, yes, it's more challenging in a way, but what makes it, what would make it different in my eyes is the fact that I think there's different like different specs and like different I guess styles of play that you didn't have previously in the game. So that to me makes it to a degree of sense, but man, it wasn't nominated, so I'm not including it here. So yeah, that's what I think about that. And then it says, oh, and our PvP scene, yeah, no, if you haven't done PvP since WoW, you're not getting into PvP modern WoW. There's such a huge barrier to entry doing knowing the game knowledge and tech. There's 13 other classes with 39 total specs that you need to know. Yeah, I would say PvP is very unforgiving as far as because you don't really, at no point during playing your class is there opportunities to go, hey, this is what the other classes do. The game doesn't teach you other classes. You just kind of interact with them and you see what they do, kind of. But unless you're like kind of like super sweaty, like, you know, looking into other classes, I don't think most people know what a monk's rotation is as a warrior. As a mage doesn't know an evoker's rotation, unless you're just really into the game or you have alts and you play it as well. So I do agree with that, but once again, I don't think that's like a distinguishing quality of an ongoing game category. And these specs cannot be compared with a league champion. A single spec has several times more complexity than like most champions on League of Legends. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's a positive thing. It's like if it's an ongoing game, I want my my spec that I'm doing to be different than what I'm previously doing. I think that's a quality, that's a good quality of an ongoing game, that these things evolve and they change. WoW has a ridiculous barrier to entry that stops from being user friendly enough to show up on these lists. It's also ancient, being 20 years old now, the oldest game. Yeah, but I think that's the point. Like, right? It's an ongoing game, decades old. It's also more popular overall and relatively more oh wait, FF14, yeah, so it's more popular overall and relatively more new player friendly, especially with its community being the complete opposite of WoW's. I mean, is Final Fantasy easier? I mean, I think they're kind of even in a way. I mean, it kind of balances out in a way. So I wouldn't say that, but maybe the whole user-friendly part, like more people are passionately voting about it than say the WoW fan base. Because for all the positive like Andes on the WoW Reddits, I don't think they're out there spouting that this game is the best game or game of the year. So maybe that's the case, but I think that some of these qualities that I think that are being missed here is that I think if you're gonna say that WoW is not a good ongoing game, I think it ignores that the game has done things that are, I guess, vastly different than its previous. But if you're coming from the perspective of this game is trash and non-approachable, yeah, okay, I got you. I get it. I understand it. So I guess I'm on that level. But what do you think? What do you think? I mean, do you think that WoW deserved to be on the list like this? Do you think that something else deserved to be on this list? I mean, I think it's a matter of preference. I mean, truly, this is how this was voted in. Just a matter of some people's preferences. You know, whether that's some sort of some sort of like social like justice warrior, or some sort of like Twitter just advocates putting it on a list. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can say like that that's the reason exactly, but I would say that WoW doesn't have a great reputation. But in that same regard, nor does Diablo. I don't think Diablo has a good reputation for it either. Just because Destiny either. It feels like they picked any game that was like pseudo mainstream and has a pulse. Like just has even the smallest bit of community, then this qualifies, I guess. I suppose. I don't know. But what do you think? Let me know. Of course, if you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe to the page, and of course, as per always, check out our Discord. I'll add that little bit to the end of it. We have been editing it a little bit, and we're looking for moderators. So hang out with us in the Discord. And if you play WoW, we would love to play WoW with you, or just join us live on stream at twitch.tv/ShawnSetGO. But until next time, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.